I've worked so hard, and I've just always thought that hard work pays off, and
Imagine waking up, grabbing your morning coffee and checking your email, only to find your job, savings, and security gone. Tens of thousands of government workers are being abandoned by the very system they served. This is triggering an economic meltdown across America's proudest states. Today, we expose the 10 states crumbling as lives are destroyed. 1. California. From tech dream to economic nightmare. California was once the symbol of everything the American dream promised. Innovative technology, media glamour, and golden opportunities. Today, that dream is shattering. Federal budget cuts hit so hard that careers built over decades were wiped out overnight.
USC has announced major budget cuts and hiring freezes.
It didn't matter if you worked in a government agency or a Silicon Valley giant. When the funding dried up, pink slips followed. For thousands, the nightmare unfolded with no warning. Just a cold email. Job terminated.
I feel very badly, but many of them don't work at all.
Experienced professionals, loyal public servants, and even credentialed scientists found themselves jobless in one of the most expensive states in the country. The cost of living here is brutal. Without a steady paycheck, savings burn out fast. Rent? Skyrocketing. Mortgages? Unpayable. Once flush urban centers from San Francisco to Los Angeles now see growing homeless encampments as displaced government and tech workers are forced to sleep in cars, tents, or temporary shelters.
The president has yet again overstepped his authority by a mile.
The impacts ripple outward. With less income, people spend less, forcing small businesses to shut down, deepening the spiral of recession. But economic disaster isn't the only threat. Federal cuts mean fewer resources for wildfire prevention, no staff to maintain water systems or patrol parks. When fires strike, no one's left to stop them. The California dream is breaking down, leaving behind uncertainty, heartbreak, and a mounting sense of dread. And this is just the beginning. 2. Washington, D.C. and Washington State. National pride unraveling. The nation's capital and its namesake state are now ground zero for a wave of unprecedented layoffs. In Washington, D.C., government buildings echo with panic. Federal workers devoted to public service are given a mere 15 minutes to clear out decades of work. Programs designed to help children and feed families are dissolved overnight. The emotional toll? Devastating. There's a sense of ultimate betrayal. Employees sacrifice so much for their country. Some came in every hurricane, fire, or emergency, yet they're let go without warning, without benefits, without dignity. The crisis stretches to Washington State, where cuts hit natural resource agencies and national parks hard. Rangers, the lifeline of park safety and maintenance, are gone. Wildfires? No one to stop them. Residents living in park housing now find themselves evicted and homeless. Even tech workers weren't spared. Suddenly jobless in the heart of high-rent cities are now forced into shelters or their cars as homelessness upsoars. Both Washingtons, once representing stability and prosperity, now reel from the fallout. The nation's image of a thriving public service sector is shattered. Crisis centers overflow. The federal cuts intended to save money are instead unleashing a catastrophic wave of pain across communities, with the worst still to come. 3. Virginia. The nerve center risks collapse.
I think it's a dangerous mistake.
We do need to stop the increase.
Virginia is the beating heart of America's defense, intelligence, and cybersecurity, the home of the Pentagon and countless government contractors. Now, cost-cutting in D.C. has turned this critical state into an economic war zone. Thousands in defense, cybersecurity, and administrative roles received cold, generic emails ending years, sometimes decades, of loyal service. One mother-to-be lost her job just weeks before her child's birth, upending her family's future overnight. Households that once felt secure, now paying bills with savings, leaning on relatives, or forced to contemplate homelessness. For Virginia, the impact reaches far beyond household budgets.
Virginia's economy, but it'll impact the services that we've come to expect as Americans, and the Congress is working.
As thousands move or fall behind on bills, neighborhoods once bustling with career professionals are thinning out. Cafes, restaurants, and grocery stores lose customers and revenue. The real kicker? With key jobs gutted at the Pentagon and NSA, the country's very defense infrastructure is vulnerable. National security experts warn that underfunding now will cost far more in the long run, as well as put American safety at real risk. If mass layoffs continue, Virginia's status as the federal government's stronghold could be lost, leaving behind empty offices, hollow communities, and a dangerous power vacuum. It begs the question, is America willing to trade safety, stability, and families' futures for short-term savings? 4. Wisconsin. Betrayed veterans and a bleeding heartland, Wisconsin.
So I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people who would like to continue.
Known for its proud veterans, strong communities, and iconic industries, is now on the front line of this government crisis. More than 3,000 federal workers here, many recently hired, faced sudden job loss, no severance, no warning, no explanation. For veterans who devoted their lives to their country and then chose public service, the betrayal stings most. One 61-year-old former VA employee who kept the state's largest veterans hospital stocked for decades was told he failed to meet requirements. Nationwide, over 1,400 veterans working at the VA have been axed, typically by email, leaving them not just jobless but stripped of their sense of purpose. For families who moved here to restart their lives, the layoff wave is a cruel twist. Some traveled thousands of miles and invested everything only to be let go within months. The local economy, dependent on government jobs, manufacturing, and healthcare, feels every shockwave. Businesses around former federal hubs close as foot traffic vanishes.
Rally for federal workers today at Milwaukee's VA Medical Center comes.
Veterans who once healed or protected communities now wonder who will be there for them in their time of need.
Of course, it brings a lot of uncertainty to crew members, and I'm speaking pilots and flight attendants and anybody in the company.
Wisconsin's legacy as a caring, community-oriented state is being undermined, and the message is clear: loyalty and service are no guarantee against sudden hardship in America's new reality. 5. Texas. Oil, opportunity, and outrage.
Devastated. I really.
Texas has always been proud of its booming oil fields, tech hubs, and stubborn optimism. But as the federal pink slips pile up in Houston, Dallas, and Amarillo, that Texas bravado is being replaced by anxiety and anger. Workers who spent years powering everything from gas pipelines to nuclear security found themselves cut adrift, sometimes by accident, the result of hasty, poorly managed reductions. In Amarillo, even employees at the top secret Pantex facility where America's nuclear arsenal is handled were laid off, raising red flags about national defense.
My little job that I have right now has gone away because the NIH grant that pays my salary is no longer there.
In Houston and Dallas, former federal and tech employees are gathering at the state capitol, desperate for answers and fighting for reinstatement. One passionate seasonal ranger had her offer rescinded at the last minute, a story repeated across the oil fields and bustling cities. The surge in layoffs is also hitting Texas's rural regions hard. Vital federal jobs in agriculture, postal service, and local administration have vanished, leading to school closures and decreased emergency services. Small towns that once thrived are now facing shrinking populations, empty storefronts, and a growing sense of uncertainty about their future. For prosperous families and newcomers alike, job loss in Texas means tough decisions. Leave the state, crowd into cheaper homes, or risk homelessness. The chain reaction is swift. Less money means fewer customers, so local stores from El Paso to Galveston are closing. The fabled Texas dream is giving way to lines at food banks and U-Hauls heading out. No state is too big, too rich, or too proud to be immune from the carnage of mass layoffs. 6. Colorado, the Rocky Mountain meltdown. Colorado, with its breathtaking peaks and bustling tourism, is feeling the full force of government layoffs. Budget cuts landed like an avalanche. Forest rangers, climate scientists, and national park workers all dismissed en masse. The immediate fallout: entire segments of the Rocky Mountains are closed, under-patrolled, or at risk of wildfire. Rangers, the state's first line of defense, are now job hunting or protesting in Denver. The science community is reeling. Hundreds at NOAA and climate research centers were let go, halting studies and jeopardizing long-term weather forecasting. This doesn't just hurt local science, it undermines America's readiness for wildfires, floods, and droughts. Losses go deeper. The wave of federal layoffs has also triggered a public health and safety crisis across Colorado, where state and local agencies are now dangerously understaffed. Emergency response teams that once relied on park rangers, search and rescue staff, and wildlife managers are struggling to cover huge territories with skeleton crews.
Increasing calls over the pandemic. Our trailheads were packed from sunup to sun.
In past summers, a missing hiker might have triggered a coordinated search within hours. Now, with so few trained professionals on hand, families can wait much longer for help to arrive, and some emergencies go unanswered altogether. Local communities that depend on federal grant programs for essential services are facing impossible funding gaps. School field trips to national parks, summer youth programs, and outdoor education initiatives have been slashed or canceled, robbing kids and teens of formative experiences with nature. Meanwhile, local governments must scramble to cover basic maintenance in federally managed lands, a huge financial burden that many small towns simply can't bear. For residents and tourists alike, this means fewer open trails, more dangerous conditions, and the loss of Colorado's unique social fabric, a place where nature once brought everyone together. The longer this crisis continues, the further Colorado risks falling from a model of environmental stewardship to a warning sign for the entire nation. With fewer park staff and shrinking tourism, Colorado's hotels, restaurants, and travel businesses are crashing. Whole towns that built their futures on tourism, Estes Park, Aspen, Colorado Springs, face bankruptcy. Family businesses that survived for decades have closed. Colorado's identity as a steward of nature is under siege. The jobs, research, and safety net built over generations are being swept away, one round of layoffs at a time. 7. Florida. From paradise to peril, sunshine, stunning beaches, and world-class resorts, the words that once defined Florida are now shadowed by empty hotels, deserted beaches, and swelling lines at unemployment offices. Layoffs run through Miami, Tampa, Orlando, and resort towns up and down the coast, hitting everyone from high-flying executive chefs to housekeepers and lifeguards.
By and large, the president has great purview over where a lot of this money goes. Now, some of this is going to be litigated.
Tourism is the backbone of Florida's economy, but federal funding cuts have led to fewer visitors, shuttered hotels, and mass job loss. As income dries up, even those who kept their homes now struggle to pay the bills. Housing is already expensive now. More and more are forced to double up with relatives, seek cheaper housing inland, or sleep in cars. Environmental protections are also in limbo. Beach preservation, anti-erosion projects, and climate resilience programs are stalled, leaving millions vulnerable to storms and sea rise. The pain isn't just limited to those in tourism or hospitality. Public sector layoffs have also slashed vital services in communities big and small. Sanitation crews, lifeguards, and parks maintenance staff are being let go across the state, leaving beaches unclean, restrooms locked, and playgrounds falling into disrepair. Residents once proud of Florida's care for its public spaces now find local parks closed, events canceled, and a sinking feeling that the very character of their neighborhoods is fading away. Meanwhile, the collapse of job opportunities is pushing skilled professionals, nurses, teachers, even police officers to consider relocating to other states where work is more secure. This growing brain drain means schools lose beloved educators, hospitals are short-staffed, and public safety becomes even harder to guarantee. As more families pack up and leave, once tight-knit Florida communities are experiencing a sense of loss that goes far beyond economics, threatening the hope and connection that made the state truly shine. In South Florida, some coastal areas are already reporting record homelessness. Florida's problems aren't just local, they're national. With tourism on life support and environmental projects slashed, millions of jobs and homes depend on solutions that just aren't arriving. The magic of Florida feels a lot more like a gamble these days, and the stakes couldn't be higher. 8. Oregon, green economy, red in financial ruin. Oregon's towering trees, lush forests, and eco-friendly industries have long symbolized sustainable American growth, but now the heart of the green economy is bleeding jobs fast. Federal budget cuts decimated the forestry sector, contracts evaporated, sawmills closed, and thousands of loggers were suddenly unemployed. Manufacturing isn't faring any better. One of Oregon's largest bike factories just announced its closure, citing rising costs and vanishing orders. This isn't just putting steel workers and machinists out of jobs, it's a major blow to the state's reputation as a leader in green technology. Laid-off workers are flooding the job market, but available positions pay far less and offer almost no security.
Federal share of overall jobs is steeper in rural parts of the state, and
entire towns, Medford, Eugene, and Bend, are losing businesses as local spending dries up. The risk of devastating wildfires is now extreme. Park staff and maintenance crews have been slashed, so minor flames can quickly spiral out of control. Oregon's future is hanging in the balance. Once a model for how sustainable industries could drive prosperity, the state stands as a warning. When budgets are hacked and jobs vanish, even the most environmentally forward state can face collapse. The question is, will decision makers step in before it's too late? Michigan, America's industry undone. Few states are as tightly bound to American production as Michigan. Fields of corn and beans, engines and assembly lines, the fabric of the working middle class. Yet federal cuts have put Michigan's backbone at risk, threatening both agriculture and the auto industry.
Being promoted put me on a probationary status because that's the way it works in the federal government.
For decades, federal farm support helped shield small farms from wild price swings. Now, those funds have dried up, forcing many to sell off land or simply go under. The fallout? Unemployment and poverty are rising across the state as rural towns lose their economic anchors. Cooperatives have closed, milling operations have slowed, and even major producers are slashing jobs. The iconic auto sector is in similar trouble. Detroit and Flint, once bustling, now see factories downsizing or closing. Support programs for auto innovation and worker safety are gone, forcing thousands of skilled laborers onto unemployment lines. Local barbers, car shops, and even diners with decades of customers each feel the loss as their old regulars tighten belts or drive off in search of work elsewhere. If something doesn't change, Michigan faces a prolonged recession that could cost the state its reputation as the engine of American progress. A place that once built the nation's dreams now faces the nightmare of economic decline, and with it, the social bonds that held communities together. 10. Pennsylvania. Education eroded, futures faded. Pennsylvania was long America's learning lab, from scenic university towns to strong public schools in every city and borough. Now it stands at the edge of a desperate crisis. Federal education cuts have battered every level. Public school budgets shrank, teacher jobs disappeared, and college aid programs evaporated. Middle and working class families in places like Scranton, Erie, and Allentown can't afford after-school programs or even school repairs, leading to overcrowded classrooms, crumbling buildings, and students left behind. Some families have watched their children drop out, burdened by debt with no way forward. The pain extends to universities, where research grants and assistantships were slashed. Thousands of students lost funding, forcing many to quit or amass crushing loan burdens. Teachers and professors, once pillars of community stability, are being lured away to other states or leaving public education altogether. If this pattern continues, Pennsylvania faces not just a brief slump, but a lost generation. Unequal access to education will widen social divides, limit growth, and drive talented young people out. A state famed for knowledge and cultural achievement is now cornered, fighting to keep the doors of opportunity open for its children.
What we did today was to take the first step of eliminating what I think is
Pennsylvania's challenges don't end at the schoolhouse doors. As funding for public education dries up, beloved after-school programs, art classes, and special education resources are disappearing. It's not just city schools feeling the pinch. Small towns from Altoona to Gettysburg are watching enrichment classes and even basic tutoring evaporate. In many communities, this means children have nowhere safe to go after school, and working parents face impossible choices between job security and child safety. Local libraries, youth centers, and neighborhood programs, cornerstones for families, are either scaling back services drastically or shuttering entirely, leaving even fewer lifelines for kids in need. Equally concerning is the mass exodus of experienced teachers and counselors. With their pay frozen or reduced and workload surging, some of Pennsylvania's best educators are moving to neighboring states or quitting education altogether. The loss goes beyond empty classrooms. These mentors provided stability, guidance, and support for generations of students. As schools scramble to fill vacancies, the quality of education declines even further, and students are left with larger class sizes and fewer resources. For Pennsylvania, if this trend continues, the legacy of world-class public education may become a distant memory, and an entire generation could miss out on the knowledge and opportunities they deserve. If this crisis hits home for you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell for more truth behind the headlines. You won't want to miss what's next.